Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 64th episode of Kouryer podcast. Today, I'm joined with Rachel Bradley. Sorry, my tongue tripped. She's a visual artist and artist coach and a reference creator as well from United Kingdom, England. Now, wait, United Kingdom, London. Yeah, way to go to mess up the introduction. Sorry.
That's all good.
All right, let's get to the first question. Give us a little introduction on how you got into visual arts and design.
Sure. So, hey, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on here. I've had a very roundabout route into art. It was not linear for me at all. I always wanted to be an artist, and like a lot of people, decided that that wasn't going to be sustainable. That was just a pie in the sky kind of dream. So I started my professional life as a biomedical scientist. And it was only when I reached the working world where I thought that, maybe I could make this work. Maybe I can have like a prestigious job that no one's going to question. And I will be able to do art on the side and be happy. And I really struggled with that. I found that my job was very draining, and I started dreaming about pursuing the stuff on my own. I started seeing stuff on social media about how you didn't need to go to university and get a degree to do an art job. So I started building up my portfolio on the side. It took years of self-study, and I was very much supported all along the way. So first by my job, I was making an income separately. And then as I was traveling, I had a partner who was supporting me. But over time, over the course of years, I was able to build up a portfolio, and I was able to kind of pick and choose my clients, and it's been really fun.
Awesome. Now, an interesting thing that I actually wanted to bring up, even if you didn't bring up just a second ago, that you said your, origin was from like biomedical, I think degree. And I had a lot of people who were from like different fields that then branched out into arts and visual arts, but I never had someone on the podcast that were from like the medical, fields and biology stuff. Like this is new. So yeah, and of course, you already explained how you started out your, career and what you wanted to study and all of that. But I mean, even before you were, before even you enrolled for like the college degree and university degree, you said you were enrolling in. What was your plan before that? Did you have a different plan? Did you want to become an artist even before that, but because it wasn't practical, you didn't pursue it? Like, what was the story?
For sure. I've had so many plans. It's hard to pick one out and say that was the one plan. When I was probably like a young teenager and I first started having plans, I thought maybe there was this theme that it needed to be successful and able to make money and easy to explain to people. I was very concerned with what people thought about me. And so the first thing I thought was graphic designer. I'm like, everyone knows what a graphic designer is. There are jobs out there for graphic design. That's great. And I changed my mind about the age of 16 and had this sudden revelation. There you go. I'm tripping over my words too now. Had this sudden revelation that I wanted to be a doctor. And so that was a little blip in my road, and that changed into biomedical science. I really entertained all kinds of ideas. I think it's difficult when you're that age. It's really hard to know what exactly it is that you want. So I spent all of my time when I wasn't working drawing, and I loved, first of all, it was kind of more realism stuff when I was younger. And then I was very much influenced by Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X was my favorite game ever. And I started doing manga and anime when I was a teenager. And then when I was a little bit older, I was fascinated by things like World of Warcraft, and so became influenced by more that digital art and that kind of Blizzard art style. So as you can see, there was always this theme of art running along underneath everything, but I just didn't see that as a viable career. I couldn't see that that was something I could possibly do. It just wasn't something they taught me in school. I'd never heard of a digital artist as a career, or that knew that you could do freelance or anything like that. That was something I discovered only when I was very far down my like medical path.
That's super interesting because I think I had a couple of guests before as well who had like the same kind of like similar journey as you. It's even like super similar to mine because first I was going to study biology, and I was going to actually study pure biology, then later, go on to study like genetics for my, later studies. But then at, I think I was 17, I decided I want to study math. So I changed majors in high school. That's how it is back in my home country, Iran. And I decided to go to mechanical engineering because since I was a kid, I loved robots. I loved creating robots. I loved spaceships and all that. And no one was there to actually see the pattern that I like the creative side of the things, not the actual math and physics and the ugly stuff, you know? So I studied medical engineering. I said medical engineering, mechanical engineering. And after a semester, I was like, all right, I'm going to take the university entrance exam again. I did. I got accepted to computer science because I loved video game design, which is actually one of my passions still now. So, I was like, okay, I can do the web graphic design, front end development, all that creative stuff that is related to computer science and game design while still, doing something, that was the closest thing to creativity and engineering I could find it. And some years later and some incidents that happened, I'm right now in a country I have to drop out. But now, after all, in midst of those years, I found that my passions are actually art and digital art and just visual arts in general. I'm a creative guy, but I'm not creative in every field. I'm not creative musically. I'm not creative like in a lot of ways. But the thing that my imagination and my brain is creative at is I'm a super visual guy. So then I realized, all right, all this time I should have just pursued that, but because especially I'm from Middle East and not just Middle East, in Asia, all of that, the society norm from parents is to just, get a good engineering, or become a doctor and all of that. So art is never a viable option when it comes to, of course, we have a lot of successful artists because of the internet is changing, a lot of stuff is making waves and giving opportunities, but you know how the situation was. But I totally get what you said. Like creativity was behind the backbone of all your decisions, but you didn't know that you actually like those stuff. So that's a really good point.
I relate to your story so much. I did exactly the same thing as you. And especially the part where you're saying that there was no one to see this thread underneath it all, that it was the creative side that you loved, and that there's an expectation that you can kind of do a job and that the creative stuff can be like external to that. And even the part where you were kind of doing jobs in between that are kind of like halfway more creative than what you were kind of started doing, but weren't actually what you wanted to do. I've been there and done that as well. And I think sometimes it's very hard not to be bitter about that. I know there's a lot of artists out there who feel very kind of robbed of time. Like, what would have happened if I'd realized at a younger age that I could have done this? Would I be further along by now? Would I be more comfortable by now? I actually think in a lot of ways, I think the very long and winding journeys we take are actually really beautiful and actually really advantageous, because if we all just dive in at the age of 14, committed to the very thing that we want to end up at, firstly, we can end up taking that thing for granted because it's what we've always wanted to do. It was never like something that we just desperately wanted with everything we have. And the other thing as well is that we get to bring all these varied experiences into what we do. And I think that if we were all following the same path and all, 14 years old, know exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, then we're only taking influences from the same places. But if we're taking these roundabout journeys, we're getting to see all kinds of things that other people that we're working with haven't seen. And they're getting to see things that we haven't seen. And I think that's how our experience and everything that we're bringing to the table really grows and changes. So yeah, if you're like us, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I took the wrong route too, and I still am not there yet, and this is awful, see the beauty in it, because it really is there, I promise.
Yeah, and especially with the advent of the new technologies of Web 3.0 and also the age we're living in right now, there's so much opportunity. You can see a lot of successful young guys at 12, 10, 14, 15, like that. They are already super good at what they love. So basically, we're living at an age where you can actually pursue your passion and get rewarded for it. You don't have to go to that engineering job. But of course, what I'm saying is totally subject to circumstances, which country you are and all of that. But in general, if you're in a first world country, or just basically if you have access to internet, I think that's the best way I could say it. You can find a way around and just to find your way and how to go about it. I think that's about it with that. And I mean, of course, we mentioned, I mentioned, what did I say? I don't know. in the introduction that you're a visual artist and artist coach, and basically the titles of the professions you're already pursuing. But in this question, I want you to explain to us what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on right now, and tell us about your experience from the start of it until now.
Sure thing. So I think that the title I most identify with is illustrator, and it's pretty broad and varied. And I do mostly independent work these days. So when I was first getting started, I did a bit more client work, mostly in the game industry, mostly for like small independent companies. I found that work didn't make me especially happy, and so since then I've been transitioning more into like independent illustration and finding ways to kind of gain support and the income from like direct from fans, so that I don't need to be doing client work. So when I say illustration, I mean mostly kind of digital art and doing kind of full illustrations, so in the range of 20 to 40 hours. And I'm the one deciding what I do. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that pretty much does. Yeah, about
Cool.
that you're a digital illustrator. Yeah. And how now we talked about of course, your profession in visual arts, but now I want to know, how does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a project? It could be a personal project, it could be a project you have to do for a studio or anything. Just how does your mind process go with this stuff?
I have to force myself to slow down a lot in the beginning. I think it's very easy for us to just want to dive right in with things. And I would say that usually the pieces that I have put more preparation into are usually the ones that are most successful. So the kind of preparation I need to do is, I find it's really helpful to get very clear on what the purpose of the piece is. So say I want to do a piece that's very heavy on storytelling. So I had an idea that I'm like, I really want to illustrate this thing, and it's the story that I'm trying to illustrate. I love the idea of capturing this particular thing. So then I have to, I write it down. I'm like, I'm going to keep this purpose is very important, so I need to keep this here. The next step is kind of fundamentals, making sure that things like perspective, values, that sort of thing are going to be like really consistent. Finding good reference is very important. And basically, I try to go through this mental checklist of making sure that these things that are very important in the early stages remain consistent through the illustration process, because it can be very easy to jump so far into rendering and stuff and get kind of obsessed with all the little details that we lose sight of the reason why we're making things. So I find it literally, sometimes I will write it down and just keep it to the side and just every now and then check in and be like, is that still working or have I lost it? And yeah.
All right. And now actually I wanted to talk about some of your works, and also some random subjects I thought it would be. They're not totally random, but they're not, All right, let's just jump to it. First, I want to talk about your references well, let me first say this to the audience that are listening, that actually our guest here has a enormous collection of great resource reference packs for artists, and you can find them on Gumroad. And actually, I understand this is the part where I introduce the products and all of that, but legit, genuinely, if you check I'll put the link in the description, by the way. If you check the reference packs, I think the most two amazing ones in my eyes are the high angle and also low angle perspective packs, which are super detailed and amazing and just high quality, and they're just what, $7. Even just, I can't say anything else. I don't know what words to use, but they're just perfect. All right, they're just great. if you're an artist in need of reference packs, and there are actually a lot of free ones, so even if you don't want to pay money, you can actually check the free ones and use them. And if you like more, it's just $5. Come on, $7. And I'll actually put them in the description for you guys to check it out. And I'll try to put some of them in the video version of the podcast, because the whole format of the podcast, even for audio listeners that are listening right now, you can check it on YouTube and Instagram later. For the video version of the podcast, I have the video of the guests and myself, and also a time-lapse video of the works of the artist. So I can put some references there so you guys can see, and if you like it, you can check the link in the description. So yeah. And all right, now with that out of the way, I want you. All right, no problem. Could you please tell me about the process of how did you decided to come make art packs and reference packs. How was the whole journey thus far? And actually, I saw in your research that you did a recent elf one in the nature, which is actually super great because a lot of reference creators, they just go in a studio, they shoot, but you guys are taking it a step further and you're going into the environments that are similar to which is super cool, I think.
No. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be doing that kind of thing because I love doing the studio stuff, and it's, honestly easy because I have the studio right here. And it's really great to be able to control the lighting and get really high quality, crisp stuff that can be difficult to get outside. But the one thing I feel is like holding my reference back is that ability to just paint the whole environment, to have the lighting like you're actually there, to have it not just be the figure that you're interested in, but also like just the whole scene to be interesting and paintable, and to be able to download photos that are kind of really made paintings, So yeah, I'm excited about that. As for how I got into it, it was honestly a happy accident. I was looking for references myself, and I was thinking about, what I was looking for, and I get frustrated because I couldn't find the kind of thing I'm looking for. Or a particular frustration of mine is there's a lot of really wonderful free content and like these amazing photos on places like DeviantArt. But the thing is, the good ones have been painted thousands of times because they're really good. And so I was like, I wanted more variety. I wanted there to be more options. And I ended up buying a cloak, and like my husband made reference photos of landscapes. And so there was already all the camera equipment sitting around. And I was like, why aren't we doing stuff with figures? There's two of us, we got the cameras, let's do it. And we bought a cloak, and the plan was to pay off the cost of that cloak. And I think it was like $200. And we were like, if we could just like, that'd be pretty fun. If we could just break even on the cost of buying ourselves little things that we want, and that's great. And I kind of think that we thought we were going to get there over time, that it would take us multiple packs to get there. There wouldn't be that much interest because it's not what either of us were primarily doing. And I think in the first day, in like the first hour, we crushed through that goal, and we were like, oh, there are like people who want this. We found something. And it just kind of grew from there. It was never our intention for either of us. And it was just a case of each time trying to expand what it was we're doing, buy more costumes. And then eventually I thought, the costumes are great fun, but they're so specific. And what if we were doing this kind of stuff, but more like anatomy focused? So doing more like underwear shoots and like expressions shoots and hands and things like that. And it has just been growing ever since. And it's been so much fun. I think maybe that's one of the things that makes it awesome, is that it wasn't a plan. It just kind of happened. It grew from a need. And I find that the best things often do.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing that's interesting for me is that you guys are actually, both of you are artists, accomplished artists. And when you make reference packs from a perspective of artists, you actually get really good quality, reference packs. And I think that's one of the reasons they're so popular. And actually, an interesting thing you said about, you actually needed reference packs yourself, then decided to make art packs. And it's actually a standard practice that a lot of artists, when they're, especially animation artists, I know. And a good example I can give for everyone now who might know the artist as well, Ethan Baker, he's a famous right now YouTuber and artist. He even in one of his videos, when he broke down his scenes that he animated for Dota 2 on Netflix, and a new animation that recently has been released, he literally took videos of himself doing like flips and all of that on his bed to, get a trace and reference, for his animations, and like he would jump and do it like a bowstring thing. So, he could get a good vibe of animation of the character that was, shooting arrows. Like, I mean, yeah. And when you have the reference packs from a perspective of an artist, it makes it much more, higher quality. And same thing as that. And also, you've been doing some, actually, speaking of references, you've been doing some collab with Ross Strauss, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I have been. It's been incredibly exciting.
And he's doing a course, I think, right?
Right. He's running a digital art bootcamp through his Patreon. So the idea is that you sign up and you can join at any time. And if you sign up to his Patreon, I believe that you get the full access from, I think it's $10 a month, and you get to join the community and get the content as it rolls out, which is pretty sweet.
$10 a month. That's pretty good. Like, I'm not like, I know, like, for everyone who's listening, yeah, of course the host is going to, just promote the cases, but no, honestly, but $10 is not is good. It's good. It's actually good. I might actually.
Yeah, I mean, phenomenally cheap for the value that you're getting. I think it's $10. I'm not certain, but yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's such a great community too. There's so many people, and I think the community is such a huge aspect of what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes growing bearable.
Yeah, and also I wanted to ask you about something, a topic that some might say is controversial, about NFTs. All right.
Yes.
I didn't wait to make suspension. I just jumped into NFTs. All right, let's go.
Let's go.
And there's been so many, like I think the main controversy about NFTs is the main one. Like there are a couple of ones is about environment effect of it, which is kind of like not wrong. Like I watched the podcast of Proco's. Proco has a Draftsman podcast, and he did an actually episode about NFTs with his, I forgot the name of his co-host, but basically his co-host said something super interesting. And he was also new to the NFTs. He said that people who are pro NFTs are not against the environment, and people who are anti NFTs are not against artists making a couple of bucks. So if the both sides calm down, have a chill conversation, they realize that they both want the same thing,
Exactly.
And oh, sorry, go on.
No, sorry, you carry on first.
All right. And I was saying, like, actually, with that being said, even recently, Elon Musk also announced that his company Tesla will also cease all the operations with Bitcoin, because it has a lot of, like, in terms of carbon emissions, like it's really high right now, which is like exactly right. And Ethereum as well, because the main controversy stems from that, because the whole NFT industry is right now on the basis of Ethereum, the cryptocurrency Ethereum, which is like the second, I think, yes, the second like most valuable cryptocurrency right now. And it takes like it consumes a lot of energy to produce actually the for all the transactions and the technology of the backbone of it. It produces a lot of energy. And actually, I saw something interesting the other day, that there's a new kid on the block. Basically, there's I think a new blockchain and technology of an NFT blockchain called Legend, LGND, and they have everyone on the board, every like high profile art guy, like most of them. I think some high profile guys already have their thing set up, but every famous artists are already in the start of it. So that's really exciting, that the future of NFTs are going. Now, with everything I just said, I want to know your opinion, and also I know that you dropped your own NFT as well. Tell us about your just everything. I'm just going to be quiet.
No, go for it. This is like a tricky topic. And it's honestly a little bit nerve-wracking to talk about, because there's been a lot of inflammatory conversation online. And I want to preface everything I say with, we are all consuming, secondhand information. We are finding stuff we read online, and we're trying to make sense of it. And as you said, we're all here for the same thing. Like, just because someone has read something that says the environmental impact isn't as bad as it makes out, then it doesn't mean that they want the planet destroyed. And just because someone is passionately supporting the planet doesn't mean they want artists to starve. So that's the first thing, is like, please try to understand that everyone has a right to an opinion, and we're all reading this stuff online, and we're all making the best of what we can. We all have different motivators. We all have different like trigger points and problems. And just trying to like bring the conversation down a notch, and really try to understand that we're all just trying to figure this out at the same point, I'm considering myself a watcher on the situation right now. So I dropped one NFT, and I dropped it right around the point where this started to blow up. So I was fascinated by the idea. So I have a very basic understanding of stock markets and stuff. And I see that as an interesting way to grow wealth. I'm not a big fan of gambling and stuff, but there are safe ways of doing that kind of thing. And I loved the idea that this was something that people could do to invest in an asset that isn't tied to a massive company. I was like, it sounded to me like being able to buy something from an independent creator that could grow in worth, that allows you to support that creator while also, you know, gaining something from it yourself. I found that really interesting. And so I dropped an NFT. And it was about the same day or 2 or 3 that it went really like big on places like Twitter, and people got very angry and very upset. And at the time, I'd seen an article that really broke this stuff down and said, you know, it does, of course, it uses energy. But when you compare it like for things like running a merchandise store and stuff, it doesn't damage the planet more than doing stuff like this. You know, we already have things like print stores. We're already doing stuff that damages the environment. If this is like, you know, let's break this down and look at it objectively. So that was what I dropped my NFT for. I was like, well, that's a very good point. If, you know, if I have a print store, then why not do stuff digitally too? That's like great. And someone raised a great point to me. You know, there was a few heated conversations that popped up off the back of me sharing that. I got very scared and hid for a few days. And one of the great points that someone raised to me with that was, you know, sale for sale, that NFTs are maybe better for the environment than physical merchandise and stuff like that. But what about all the stuff that people are uploading and is not selling? And I was like, oh, good point. So, you know, if you're uploading lots of stuff and no one's buying it, you're still, you know, using the energy to like mint it, and no one's buying it, no one's benefiting from that. And with this kind of bubble that's being created of lots of very famous artists uploading things and like, you know, they're all getting sales. There's a lot of us, and I'm included in this, who've uploaded something and it's just not shifting. And therefore that is kind of wasted energy. So I decided before I do any more, I'd like to kind of sit and let these more energy efficient systems kind of develop a little bit. I'm in support of people who are investigating it. I'm not mad at people for investigating it. The development of, it's proof of stake, right, versus proof of work. Gosh, this is me trying to translate me just like browsing the internet late at night and just like passively consuming it, trying to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about right now. But that, I think, is what makes Legend interesting, is that they are using proof of stake. And that's supposedly much better for the environment. I've also seen them getting a lot of slack from people too. So I think I'm going to remain a watcher for a little while, but I do think it's interesting. And if there is a way to make it environmentally viable, I love the idea of people being able to essentially invest in their favorite artists. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, those are some really interesting points, and I was actually like, you know, taking notes in the middle of your talks, because
Yay.
I actually, you know, wanted to raise some points about everything we talked about. That I've been like researching NFTs for like 3 to 4 months now. You know, I've been deep into it. I think it's super fascinating. There's an extreme huge amount of potential for it, and like 2 things I want to mention right now while we're on the topic is that, of course, you said as well that your NFT didn't get much traction. And also, I think I had this same conversation with Noah Bradley as well. And he also minted some NFTs, but I even checked his stuff. And he also, I think, didn't get much traction as he would want. And I had some guests also on the show, and they didn't get much traction. And now, why I bring all of this up? Because there's a certain pattern among all of the works that I've seen, is that I think the best way I could describe it is there's a certain culture right now in the whole culture of NFTs. It has its own subculture. And the thing that I realized, 2D illustrations don't get much traction and are not really appealing to collectors as much as I've seen, you know? Mm-hmm. It could even be a great, like, technically sound like piece, but that's not what most collectors are into. It's basically the subject of craft versus expression, you know? And it doesn't have to be a philosophical expression. It's mostly, I think, the things that are successful more on the NFT space is abstract expressions, like the most weird stuff imaginable, you know? Like
some weird stuff out there.
Yeah, like I saw an animation, like, and here's the thing, every time I'm always on Foundation website every day and Rareable to just, you know, get a feel of the culture and what's selling and what's not selling. And there was this animation by, I think, this artist, and she wasn't even that popular. So you couldn't say, oh, it's because of clout. Because, of course, one of the main reasons NFTs get traction, a lot of them is because they already have clout, So even if they do the most, ludicrous, piece of work, it would still sell. So, they wouldn't have to worry about that. But now, the piece that I saw was basically, it wasn't technically something remarkable, but it was an 3D animation of, it was decent, of a huge mecha gorilla walking on a beach, and in front of her was a girl also walking as well, like the mech gorilla was like, escorting her. And the title was Apes Together Strong. It's super abstract. It's kind of based in meme culture. And guess how much it sold?
Oh God, don't make me guess how much.
33.9 Ethereum.
How much does that equate to?
All right, just give me 5 seconds. It doesn't take much. Right. Let's say I said 33.9. I'm just going to put it 33.5. Now, I think it's more now. Ethereum is much more, but I'm just going to assume it's the last price of like 2-3 days ago. So, not much. It's just 113. It's nearly $114,000.
Not bad.
I mean, if the light does block it. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, but you get the point.
Money.
And another artist I found was I've been following her works a lot. She's an amazing polygraphic, like voxel artist, 3D artist. She makes amazing environment arts, And I've been following her for months. Then I saw on Foundation someone's work is on it, and I was like, wait, that's the same artist I saw on Instagram that I've been following for a long time. And her works have been selling successfully. And she didn't have any clout, by the way. She started from Instagram. She got a following from there, then started sharing on Twitter. That's how it went down.
I think a big part of it as well, and this is, I think, where I drew the line and decided I'm not ready to partake, is that with most, I'd say, anyone who's trying to pursue something like that online, there's an aspect of craft and the quality of what you're sharing and, whatever. And that's kind of the easier bit to see. The bit that's not so easy to see is the personality behind it. And I find that really to be successful at these things online and stand out, you have to really, it's not always just the cool thing that people are investing in. They're investing because they agree with the person or they want to support the person. And I think that a lot of the people who are doing really well with NFTs are throwing everything into this. And it's kind of like you were talking about a culture. And I think that's exactly it. I think that a lot of the people who are very successful with it are really participating in the culture. They are not afraid to be public about being an NFT artist. They are kind of connecting with the fans. They're seen connecting with other NFT artists. And that's really how you start to grow a sense of like, this is a notable artist in the scene. That's why I decided not to get into it, because I saw how upset people were about it, and I was like, I don't have the disposition to be controversial. I'm not good at controversy. I just want to I launched my one NFT. I got like 2 negative comments, and I hid under a rock for like 4 days, just like scared of the internet. So I decided I wasn't going to be able to put myself out there and like be that personality. But if you are like not afraid of the internet, and if you passionately believe that this is like the kind of work you want to support, then I really encourage finding communities and really connecting with like, what is it outside of the actual like artwork that's being dropped that this person is doing that's making them interesting. I think there's a very clear divide between, like, I don't think there've been many people who haven't been very vocally supportive of NFTs or like something like that, if they've got clout, fine, but like people who don't have clout, they don't make sales by being quiet about it and sending like one email and being like, buy it, and then running away. There's like a big like personality behind it. And I think that's true of most things, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a culture thing as well. And also the personality behind it should be able to, handle the criticism and all of that. Like People, I think he's the most famous NFT guy out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's the biggest guy when it comes to that. And if you look at his works, even before he sold his famous NFTs, there were some surreal fever dream type stuff,
Yeah.
subject of his works. And so he was consistent with the theme of his works, and he also was involved in the culture as well, even before NFTs became that big, And actually, I have an idea. The second thing that was on my note that I want to mention is actually something that in the future I'm going to make an NFT video for YouTube. It's something that I'm going to mention in it as well. And I have a super good idea that I think it's has a high chance that it will work, and it's for you. All right. So have you watched Harry Potter?
Of course. How many times?
All right. Good. We're on a good start now. In the Hogwarts, in that hall where there's like stairs moving automatically, magically, there's a lot of paintings on that hallway. And what do those hallways look like? They're people like trapped inside it, and they're animated paintings. Now, if you put that concept and try to make like abstract videos of doing cosplays, like being in different settings, and just put yourself in not just a frame. Yeah, you could put yourself in a frame and just do different stuff, like I don't know, abstract stuff like that. If you do some research, there's a lot of like videos, not frames or anything specific like that. There are videos that people just do random stuff, add some video filters, like that doesn't take 5 minutes, and it sells like 1.8 Ethereum for no reason. Because there's a lot of and actually I don't criticize it, because for someone and they clearly, as much as cheaply made as it may seem, they're trying to convey a message as abstract as it is, because the people who made it, they had to pay some money. They believed in the work. They paid some money to mint the work, So it's not they were trying to, just post random stuff for it to, hit something, Yeah. And I think, and the reason I'm saying this subject would really work, because you haven't right now established a solid NFT portfolio. So you have space and potential to establish your niche in NFTs. And if you could, that's an available niche. You have, good camera and photo shoot, equipment. You can do cosplays, and there's this idea. Try to put the puzzles.
That's a cool idea.
Just think about it, because, like, honestly, I think this has potential.
Thank you.
Because
that's a cool idea.
Yeah, because it ticks all the boxes that I'm thinking about when it comes to what makes a successful NFT brand.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and to be fair, like I have a lot of ideas. I think honestly, the biggest thing holding me back is just this environmental debate.
Yeah.
And I of course care, and I want it to be as efficient as possible. And I'm also a people pleaser, and I don't want to upset people. So I'm honestly, I can see a space where if I were brave enough, and if I were super convinced by the research I've read that says it's not terrible, it's so hard when you're wading through two sides of an argument where both people are saying very compelling and logical things to know which one has more grounding. So I'm gonna wait until I can see that it's, I'm willing to fight people if I know that what I've read is like just factually correct. But I don't know, it's so hard when there are people who are passionately saying this is killing the planet, and when there are people passionately saying no, it is not. It can be so hard. I'm just like, I just don't know which of you is like telling the truth here. And maybe you both are, but you've just read wildly different things, or the same thing and read it from two different perspectives. And so yeah, honestly, NFTs are not for me right now, but I don't think that I'm not going to judge people for doing it. And basically, I can't claim I'm an expert. I can't claim to read things online and be like, this makes me an expert and puts me in the correct position to judge other people and their life decisions. So I'm going to wait it out for a little while longer. But I definitely think, I think there's potential.
Yeah, I mean, what you said, it sounds like a good plan. Wait it out, see how technology progresses, because there's been recent news that, of course, a lot of big companies like Tesla, like, as I mentioned, like, is cutting down Bitcoin. And there's also a lot of like, what was the word? A lot of like, wait, I'm forgetting basic English words. Oh, there's a lot of like favor. All right, what I'm trying to say, there's a lot of favor towards like, environmental friendly, platforms, because right now there's another, I think, two other NFT standards like that, blockchain standards that are like Cardano and Tezos as well, which I think are famous. NFT website is also based on Tezos, like the famous one. He cannot something like that. I forgot the name. So yeah, I mean the technology is still very new, so it has a lot. It's still growing. It still is having its growing pains, and of course there's going to be some problems. But I think it has like the concept is sound. The only thing that's the main like controversy right now is the environmental thing, which I think is valid reason. Of course, there's arguments that could there's arguments for both sides, but yeah, I think the best what you're doing right now is to wait it out is a perfect plan. And well, let's move on from NFTs and let's actually go to the next question, which is a tricky question because it's not necessarily art question. Have you ever used your dreams as inspiration for your works, or are you one of those people who have like really wild dreams?
I have a really, really upsetting answer to this. No. I have the most obscure dreams that are just not beautiful or vivid or interesting. Sometimes I have like some story ideas, but no, I have to be honest, my dreams are usually erratic and weird. And they're the kind of thing that you wake up and you're like, that makes so much sense. And then 2 hours later, you're like, what did I eat before bed? I need to avoid that in future. No, I've always wished I was the kind of person that could like fall asleep and dream of flying and dragons and no, I'm not. I dream about someone that I knew when I was 6 years old and saying something weird to me and it upsetting me. That's my kind of dream.
Oh,
Do you?
yeah, actually, kind of yes and kind of no. Like I don't have those kind of dreams that you mentioned, that's dragons and flying and all of that. Like it happens, but from time to time. But like mostly right now, I've been having nightmares constantly, like those dreams you mentioned, for just 2 weeks now for no reason. I don't know.
Gosh.
And I wake up, and I don't know. I change my diet, I change the temperature, and it's still the same. I'm like, whatever, just not whatever. I don't care.
Just brains.
Yeah, brains are weird. But sometimes, like one of the two prominent dreams that I super detailed, like with coloring and lighting and camera works and everything. It's like a professional thing. Like it's the most abstract and weird, not in a bad way or a good way, in a neutral, chaotic way. The best way I could describe
it.
Like I was walking down, then there was like a convertible fast sport car coming. There's like two famous athletes I know were in. They said jump in, and we were like speeding out. There were sinkholes everywhere. Then we jumped down. Then I ended up in the yard of my grandma's home back in my home country. Then there were then there were remnants of the Enclave soldiers from Fallout series shooting us. Dreams like that,
That's actually, I can relate to that. I feel like my dreams tend to be, I think the most fantastical dreams I have are usually disaster dreams, which I don't know what that says. I'm sure a psychologist could have a field day. But I have a lot of dreams about being stood like maybe on a cliff by an ocean or something like that, and watching like a tsunami coming in, like a completely like non-possible massive scale tsunami, or like had one recently about walking through a park and seeing planes in the sky that would kind of turn around, like not like, bank like a plane does, but physically like pivot and turn back.
Yeah,
or like falling out of dropping through the sky and stuff, and realizing that there was some massive disaster happening. And so yeah, I get those a lot. I think most of my like visually interesting and like fantastical story driven dreams tend to be disaster dreams. It's either disaster dreams or dreaming about interactions that never happened between people I thought I'd forgotten about.
Yeah, I could relate to that, definitely. Yeah, people I don't think about for years, and they end up in my dreams in a bizarre way. Then I wake up, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Or things I think I've made peace with long ago that just come back to haunt me. That I'm like, why? We didn't need to remember this.
Yeah, I don't need a reminder.
Dreams aren't my friend.
Yeah, I know. And actually, to add to the wild dream I mentioned, that in the end, after they were shooting us, I went down to another stream, which seemed like a Chinese like themed street, and I saw world chess champion there saying hi to me, and I was like, "Hey, dude!" And it was like, "Hey." Then I woke up. I was like, "What the hell was that?" They're not related at all. My grandma's yard, the soldiers. I don't know.
It made so much sense at the time. We just didn't question it. We went along with it.
Yeah. Um, all right, now let's move on to the next question. Who are now? I know this is kind of like a hard question for most people, and I don't expect it to be easy for you as well. But who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Really hard. My husband, obviously, was a huge inspiration to me, and I don't think I'd be doing this if it wasn't for him. In fact, I know I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for him. So yeah. It changes, and it changes for all sorts of reasons. I look up to some artists for like the lifestyle. One artist that I really look up to right now, and I'm grateful to call him a friend, is Ergo Josh. So he's on YouTube, and he has a great following over there. One of the reasons I admire him so much is because he's making a living by essentially being, I refer to him as like a professional student. Like, his work is amazing. He has no right to call himself a student, but he is still trying to get to where he wants to be. And rather than hiding and waiting, he's just sharing that very honest side of what he's doing, just sharing like the studies he does. He's using that to encourage people, because ultimately we have a feeling that we have to be a master at something before we can help other people with it, but it's so not true. And there's so much to be gained from someone who's just a little bit ahead in the journey than you are. And so I love that. And I really look up to him for making a living, you know, from learning and being supportive. I'm really into Sam Does Arts right now on Instagram. Particularly for how fast he paints. And I love watching his journey. Very recently, I think in the last year, he's gone from being kind of new to this stuff and doing what the rest of us are doing, and doing semi-realistic portrait paintings and trying to grow an audience. And then I think it was like about a year or two ago, he sped it up and just started doing these very quick, very loose, very charming illustrations. And, you know, he's obviously spending like a tenth of the time on them that he was before. And his following has boomed. And he's like, I think he over 1 million now, I think. It's insane. Like, this incredible following. And he spends an hour or two on these full paintings, and they're beautiful. They are everything they need to be. For him to spend more time on them would only be polishing. Like, they are totally coherent as they are. They don't need more work. And that's something I really struggle with. And so it's something that I look up to. He's like a reminder to me that the story and the fundamentals are so much more important than like those little polished details. Oh my gosh, there's just so many, and it changes so much, so constantly. But let me see if I can think of one more that I'm really into. Yeah, I'm going to say some of you might know Sanguine on Instagram. He's a wonderful guy. He's been so friendly, and he's just a wonderful advocate for people who are studying and growing. Like, he's always sharing people who don't have many followers, and he fosters this really nurturing community. He's great. And one of the things I admire about him is that he just really, really loves his craft. He's wonderful at drawing. I wish I could draw like him. He's incredible. He makes it look so effortless. He's just really good at anatomy, really good at stylization and exaggeration. And I really admire him because he's doing this for the love of it. Like, he has a day job. He doesn't make a living off of art yet. And I love how much he loves art. Like, he's my anchor and reminder that I should be doing this for the love of it. Like, we all joke sometimes, you know, we say like, oh, you know, I hate my art. I hate doing art. I just want to chill. And he's just like, I don't understand. Why would you hate art? Art's amazing. And I'm like, we need to remember to be like this. So yeah, I'd say that my influences are diverse, and my art style, my taste in art style is way too variable and diverse to be able to pinpoint like people and say that and that. But in terms of like lifestyle and mindset, I'd say I look up to those people.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Does Art is amazing, and I actually like recently found him because I've been trying to get myself more into like digital art and Photoshop drawing. I've done some like, you know, I started with some tutorials from YouTube to just get a feel of it, because my main thing before that was vector art and graphic design, you know. But I always loved digital art, you know, that was my main thing. But because I was like, there was like so much things going on, and I wanted to be able to do something now and when, like I was a bit impatient, I went to graphic design because you could, get results faster. From me, of course, it's subjective. And what you said about Ergo Josh, actually, I found him through YouTube as well. And yeah, his videos are really good. Like his voice is kind of like an ASMR kind of vibe. Like his videos
So
are,
soothing.
yeah. And what you said actually is one of my main philosophies of the Kouryer podcast is that I don't necessarily invite people who are active like industry professionals. I even bring people who just started for like 4 months, I had. And because I believe that everyone, regardless of their experience, as long as they started and on their journey, they have seen things that others might not have seen, or maybe they have a fresh perspective on something that everyone has been studying, but they haven't seen from their perspective. So it's always super like, valuable to get other people's perspective on the subject you're trying to get better at, improve at. And that's one of the main things. I don't care about followers or how much years of experience you have under your belt. I care about if I see some creative juice, I'm like, I want to talk to you. That's my main thing about the podcast. And well, with that out of the way, actually, I want to know, aside from the artworks you do for like clients or maybe studios you did, if you want to do personal art projects for yourself, what are the main subjects of them usually?
This is something that I have recently kind of overhauled. So I used to be just very much interested in depicting fantasy settings, and I found my love for that waning. And I don't know why that is. I always loved fantasy, but I found that as my skill grew, as I kind of demystified what went into making those magical looking scenes and characters, I found myself losing some of that magic. And I found myself reconnecting to just simpler things. I found myself looking at illustrations, and it wasn't the skill that went into them or the like vividness of the imagination into like that went into these fascinating designs. It was actually just the relatable characteristics. So looking at characters and seeing yourself in them, kind of slice of life things, like the little in-between moments of like, say, a character who could, be in a fantasy setting. They could be wearing a massive like costume and stuff, but they're taking a coffee break. And like those little bits, I found myself really connecting with the emotional storytelling side of things. And I've started to try to push that. So the most recent full painting I did was, there was like, oh gosh, hang on, when you just completely blank. I think Like No One's Watching. There we go. I think that's the name of it. And it's of a girl who's cleaning her bedroom and she's singing into her cleaning bottle like it's a microphone. And there's a cat in the corner who's just like, oh no, she's doing the thing again. And I just wanted it to be just this cluttered, chaotic, charming scene of just like this in-between moment that other people don't get to see. And I'm really drawn right now to, like, I'm going through like a studying phase, which I do frequently, and trying to push my skills. But I'm really, really focused on making charming, relatable characters. I want to make, I think of them as wonky characters. And this comes from like my own journey with like self-image and stuff like that. I have a very asymmetrical face, and it's actually why I'm sitting, like you might notice I'm sitting slightly off center, so you don't notice how asymmetrical my face is. My nose is twisted, I smile from one side, super asymmetrical, and I was always so self-conscious about it. And then this year, it's something I started exploring more. I did a self-portrait, and rather than trying to hide all the things that I normally self-conscious about, I played them up. So I made everything super twisted, and I made my teeth massive and all these things. And I really loved the emotional connection it gave me to it, rather than it being a process of polishing and hiding. It was a process of like celebrating those things. And I've really wanted to start bringing that into my work to make things wonky but charming and busy and relatable and all like very much story driven.
All right, pretty interesting. And well, let's move on to some, kind of some technical questions. What technologies and softwares do you mostly use for your work? So of course, by technologies, I mean the hardware you use for drawing or.
Sure. So I do most things in Photoshop. and I have a Cintiq, so a Wacom Cintiq. It's a 32-inch. It's very lovely. I also use Procreate on the iPad. I tend to use that more for sketching, but it's something I'm trying to expand into. I'm trying to do more painting on there because I'll be traveling a little bit more when this pandemic lets up a little bit. So that's something I want as well, to be able to travel, to paint on the go. That is the bulk of what I do. I'll also do some like sketching, traditional stuff, but that's a very small part of what I do.
All right. And any advice and tips for a good portfolio and resume for artists?
This one's a bit tricky for me because, as I say, I stopped focusing on portfolio a while ago because I choose mostly to do independent work. But ultimately, two things jump to mind. The first is to make sure that you're actually doing the things you want to do. And I don't mean the jobs you want to do. So this was the mistake I made, is that I let the jobs I wanted to do be the focus of my art creation and my portfolio. So things like back when I got started, I wanted to work for Wizards of the Coast, not because I would enjoy doing any paintings that Wizards of the Coast could hire me for, but because I wanted to work for Wizards of the Coast because I thought they were a cool client because my favorite artists were working for them. And so I pushed my portfolio in that direction and it made me miserable. So make sure that when you are creating a portfolio, it is for work that you actually enjoy making and not because you just think it's a really cool job and you don't know anyone who pays better and your favorite artist works for them, so clearly you'll enjoy it too. There is a big difference between the jobs we want to do and the kind of prestige and acclaim we want and the things that actually feel nice for us to make. So get really clear on the parts of the process you enjoy and, you know, why you want to do it, not just what you want to do, but why. So that's my first one. The second one is to really keep those fundamentals front and center. Like I really believe that if your fundamentals are like strong, then you can have a somewhat finished standalone piece very quickly. And then everything from there is polish. If you can keep those fundamentals front and center, you can do a lot. You can play a lot with style and color and, you know, levels of polish, texture, all these kinds of things. But if those fundamentals are strong, everything else is just kind of secondary. So yeah, don't let your desire to do fancy, fun things completely override the importance of the fundamentals.
Yep. And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? What kind of project is it? Of course, I mean, if there's an NDA involved, we can just skip right past this question. But if that's not the case, what are you doing right now?
So I'm doing, like I say, mostly independent. I do have a client project ongoing at the moment, which I haven't shared anything about on social media. And that is a children's book illustration. Not a single illustration. I'm illustrating a children's book. So not something I ever thought I would do. I actually had someone asking recently, do you see yourself doing children's illustration? I was like, absolutely not. Nope. Definitely not. And then a couple of months later, I'm doing a whole damn book. And that is because I can't talk too much about it right now, but it's a really interesting project. So it wasn't so much for the illustration, it's because the story behind the book really spoke to me. And I know the author from a different thing I was doing, and I love his voice and his message. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be a cool one. So I'm working on a kid's book. So that should be fun. And outside of that, mostly right now, I am working on, like I said, studying. So I'm doing a lot of personal illustration. I'm mostly trying to loosen up with my sketching. So I'm doing a lot of sketching practice. I'm trying to embrace the imperfection and really nail my fundamentals. And like I was saying, if your fundamentals are strong, you can get away with a lot. So I am trying to put that into practice, make sure that my fundamentals are at the front of everything I'm doing and see what I can get away with.
All right, and actually about the fundamentals part, it's so true because I had some like really good gesture drawing and fundamental teachers on the show, like Michael Matesi and Diego Lucia, and they're like really good at this. And when they showcase some of the artworks of their students, it showed, and when you compare it to people who've been doing this for years, but they haven't practiced the fundamentals properly, like it shows the difference, like the proportions, the values, everything. Like if you get the fundamentals right, I know as boring and just dry sometimes as it may be, but you have it in your backpack for the rest of your life. So, it's like doing your dishes so you can just chill comfortably. I don't know why I made that example, but for me, it's like that.
It is. It's the secret that no one wants to hear. And it's like, we really want that to be much sexier than it is. We're like, so what is it that's holding me back? Like, what is it that sets the pros apart from me? And it's the fundamentals, like almost always. And it's just not a fun answer, but it is the answer. And I think that's the key, is to make it sexy, just have fun with it. Realize that, we all want an easy answer. And with something like art, there is so rarely an easy answer. It's so enigmatic and open to interpretation. And that's why I find it actually really nice that there is actually a group of skills that, if you get good at them, will objectively make everything better, and it will remain important no matter what it is you do. So yeah, that's the sexy part. There is a secret, and it is fundamentals.
Yeah, and it's even interesting that I had a guest on a podcast, Roxanne Barrel Bonfit, if I pronounce her name correctly. And she's not super famous, like on any social media, but like she's doing her works. And the thing that's really like, even now, it's a reason that I'm even mentioning her. The coloring of her works are just so gorgeous and just so aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Her illustrations, and like when I even compare it to some of like super famous artists and illustrators, not to take anything away from them, but just technically speaking, her coloring, for me, in my opinion, which I don't think is subjective, it's kind of like an objective thing. You can just judge coloring and fundamentals, like that's the reason they exist, to objectively make your work better. Her coloring and mixing is just another level. She's really good.
Amazing.
She's really good, and I recommend everyone who are listening at this point. First of all, thank you so much for listening at this point. You are awesome. And second, yeah, you can check her works out. She was on my podcast. I'm sorry, I don't remember the correct episode. Yeah, but I think she was 10, 12 episodes a while back. But you can easily find her. And well, with that out of the way, let's go to the next question. What area beside the area you're working on right now, which is of course art and reference making and all of that, would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? And by the way, the thing that I mentioned, it could be anything non-art related or anything. Just we want to know Rachel Bradley a bit more,
Sure. I think I really want to develop the coaching side of things. So we haven't really touched on that. I'm a creative coach. So I work with artists not only on building up their physical art skills, but also on working things like mindset and confidence. And I really love that. It's actually the reason, I think, underneath it all, that I got into art. I thought it was because I loved painting. I think it's actually because I love what painting enables me to do with people. I love getting to talk about creativity. It's just an interesting topic. It's a vulnerable topic. And I love getting to work with other creatives. And I didn't realize that until later in my journey. So I think that the thing I'd really love to do and invest more time in is more research into understanding like the way that mindset plays into what we do, and also finding that line between physical barriers and mental barriers. And I love that kind of thing. And my pipe dream is to be able to, especially with this pandemic keeping us all at home for so long and disconnecting us all, I really love the idea of being able to bring people together, having like workshops and opportunities for people to connect in person, setting up events, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's really what I want to spend more time, to be able to be able to separate out when someone's struggling, like what is this, what do we have control over, what can we change, what do you need someone just to support you with, like that sort of thing. I find that fascinating.
All right. And well, with everything that's been said and done, to conclude all we discussed, please give us a roadmap for someone who is zero in visual arts and wants to get to the place you are in terms of skill sets, like where to start, best tools, softwares, books, courses, anything like for someone who is here and wants to get here. And what do those steps, major steps in your opinion, you think look like?
I'm going to say the first step is making sure you are supported and well outside of the art. So by that, I mean a lot of artists feel a pressure to dive right in. They see their favorite social media artist and they know they don't have a day job, so they feel guilty about wasting time on a day job when they could be studying. It's much easier to get better if you are like well outside of art, if you have a roof over your head, if you're in good health, if you are able to pay bills. It's much harder to get better at art while those things are suffering. So first and foremost, find a way to support yourself and take care of yourself. From there, I think, especially if you're going my route and not getting formal education, the best thing you can do is cut down the noise and find people that you really want to kind of emulate. So either in lifestyle or in the type of art you want to make, start gathering inspiration and start analyzing what it is specifically about their work that you love. And that will get easier the more you practice it. But have kind of like we're talking about roadmap here. It serves as a roadmap, seeing these people that you look up to and turning down the noise. So not being distracted by things that aren't that important to the direction you want to take. From there, I've already harped on about the fundamentals, so I won't go on too heavily. There are so many resources on the internet these days, so many. And most of what I have learned has come from, honestly, free YouTube videos and just searching topics very specifically. So perspective and values and things like that, just taking them one by one and studying, doing master studies, practicing, just like figuring it out one by one. And from there, I think the last thing is to just keep doing it and find ways to add value. So that's how I was able to grow my following. Is I knew that I wasn't going to be a legendary, influential artist 3 years ago. I was too new. I wasn't going to make a difference. But what I did have was my outlook and my experience that I could share with people. I had my reference photos. I had my coaching. There were so many little things that I could share. And by sharing that value with people, I was able to gain a following for my art long before I would have done if I'd just been sharing the art and nothing else. So yeah, find ways to make the journey enjoyable, because it is always a longer journey than we want it to be. Like mine certainly has been. I've been very fortunate and it's still taken so much more time than I thought it would. I'm still going. So find ways to make it enjoyable in the long haul, because we never really feel like we have arrived, even when we have the job that we wanted or the number of followers we thought we wanted. It's always moving, like it's constantly changing. So if we don't get good at making the journey enjoyable, if we don't find ways of making those little victories feel like actual victories, then it's going to be really tough. So yeah, it's not too early to start enjoying this process.
All right. Well, actually, about one of the points you said when it came to the roadmap section, that's actually such an interesting point. Make the long haul enjoyable. For example, one of the things, like I just want to give an anecdote, an example with this, because it's been something that actually I've been thinking about recently a lot, like this whole thing, because I'm constantly trying to learn new things. So I was like, how, like one of the things that I'm super confident at and I'm also good at, and everyone tells me I'm good at since I was a kid, was my English. I'm really good at English. I even got like it's not the best score, but I got a 7.5 out of 9 academic IELTS score last year without
Nice.
sleeping. Last night I was just watching memes videos on YouTube. And so at my worst, I got a 7.5. I'm pretty good. Now, the reason I mentioned that is now I'm trying to learn like Turkish because I'm living in Turkey. I'm trying to get better at digital art. I'm trying to get better at chess, a lot of things. So, and I'm like, how did I get good at English? It's because when I was a kid, without me even trying to practice, I had like notebooks of like, writing different names of flowers when I was 8, writing different names of spices, countries, materials, anything. And the other thing was, because of video games and role-playing games and a lot of that, without anyone telling me to do this, or whenever I would watch a series, I still had a notebook. And in the subtitles, if I saw something that I didn't understand, I would write it down and find it. I kind of developed this obsession to just this kind of OCD to learn everything. And this, you can also apply this to anything else that you want to learn. You could apply to learning math, which I'm actually doing right now because 2 months later I have a university entrance exam. You can apply to learning chess, if you want to develop your opening repertoire, or you could develop it at anything, drawing. When it comes to like, any aspects of fundamentals, when it comes to perspective, lighting, like you can just put, for example, a water bottle in front of you and just shine some light from your phone on it from different angles and experiment like this type of stuff. You can apply this everywhere. And when you do that, the first like few weeks or month could be boring as hell, but once you actually, no one even doesn't even need to tell you, you notice it yourself, you're improving. And when you're improving, what that causes momentum, and humans are very momentum-based creatures. And that's how you essentially start. And of course, in life, life is not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, stuff happens. You might get off the track and lose your momentum, but you can always just start back. So that's, I think, the gist of it. I could, add on to that. And with that out of the way, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for coming by on the podcast. Where can people contact you if they had a question?
Thank you for having me. The easiest place is by email, and that is rachel@imrachelbradley.com. You can also get me on Instagram by the same. So I'm Rachel Bradley. Pretty much anything, I'm Rachel Bradley. But yeah, Instagram and email are the best way to get me.
All right. I think that's about it. Thanks so much for coming by. And thank you, everyone who's tuned in and listened. I hope you all have a good day. Take care, everyone, and see you next episode. Bye.